the recent trade with the Lakers and the Mavs. Your thoughts on the Doncic-Davis trade?
What do I think of it? It's a trade involving two other teams and other players that don't play for the Warriors, so I will not comment on that. Sorry.
Is Draymond ready to go?
Draymond's ready, yeah.
Okay. Minutes restriction?
That's a good question. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
48 or less.
48 or less, okay. For sure. I mean, he's he just first came back. Obviously, he's scrimmaged a couple times, but nothing holding him back from, it's not like an injury-related minutes restriction. It's just, conditioning and rhythm, and so chances are, it turns into a minutes restriction.
A very basic question, but what would you like Draymond to add to the defensive intensity?
Just energy and talk, and he always ties us together at that end. There's so much gray area in the game. You go into a game with, schemes and coverages, and then, all hell breaks loose. And he has a way of making the possession make sense for the five guys, and that's what I'm looking forward to, getting that back.
Steve, not about a specific trade, but obviously the last couple of days have been kind of wild. I'm trying to think, you've seen a few trade deadlines in your day. Can you remember any that were started off the week before the deadline actually started off with such big names being moved around?
I can't, but I don't. I also never think about that stuff. So maybe there's been deadlines that have been crazier, but Raymond's the historian around here.
You sure about that?
Well, he's supposed to be. I think he's got his minions working for him. And he just throws stuff at him and says, "Go look this up," and that. And we know how he treats people. So maybe he's got people working on that right now, but I don't really follow that. Anybody else? Yeah.
Coach, after Friday's game, you said that it'd be hard for you to envision this team standing pat at the deadline.
I didn't say that. What I said was we're 24 and 24, so we can't stand here and say, "Oh, we're good."
Yeah,
we'll stand pat. But I didn't say it's tough to envision. It's actually very easy to envision that. All that takes is there aren't any good deals out there. So maybe my words were misconstrued, but my point is, like, if you're 500, you have to be open to everything.
Gotcha. Well, obviously with that, independent of the two teams and other teams that have made moves, is that still, you feel like the approach going into the deadline essentially 72 hours away?
Yeah, the deadline speeds things up and has a way of making teams, make their best offer. And I know Mike is talking to everybody and on the phones and talking about potential deals because that's his job. And as I said the other night, if there's something that makes sense that can make us better, Mike's going to do it. And my point the other night was, when you're 500, you don't reserve the right to say, no, we're going to stand pat. We're fine. We're not fine. We're 500. We're in 10th or 11th place in the West. So we got to look at everything. But you don't chase bad deals either. So if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. We move forward.
Considering the circumstances of before Friday's game, and now that you had a chance to review it, what are the things that most disappointed you, I guess, over what happened in that particular game against the Suns?
Well, I thought we started out pretty well. The pace was good. We were really pushing the ball well, and then I thought we got a little bit disconnected. Had some bad offensive possessions in the second quarter that led to poor transition defense, and that's when they broke it open. And so that stretch in the second quarter where we didn't execute very well at either end really changed the game. And then obviously that's one of the most talented teams in the league with great shooting across the board. They got hot. Once they got hot, we couldn't turn the water off.
When shooters get open corner threes, generally, and there's been a few, is that generally a team breakdown or an individual breakdown, or is it a mix of both?
Always a mix of both. Some of them come in transition. You know, if your transition defense is poor, or even if it's just a disadvantage, a 5-on-4, everybody is teaching their guys to run to the corners for that shot, since it's such a high value shot. And then in the half court, you know, that's why teams run the stuff they do. You know, that's why Phoenix went and got Nick Richards so they could have a lob threat, so that in the half court, as he's diving to the rim, that low guy's got to pull in and help, and that opens up the corner. And if your rotations aren't sharp, then it gets really tough. So it's always a combination.
Steve, will Draymond start tonight?
Yeah,
Are you sharing mood with the rest of the starters?
sure. Quentin, Wiggs, Steph, Buddy.
As far as Quentin goes, small sample size, 2 straight starts, third starter tonight. Where do you see maybe that progression, and where do you see maybe teams attacking his, being a rookie right now?
I think the offense has been really good. I thought his first 6 minutes against Phoenix were excellent. Knocks down a couple threes, pick and pop situations. Gets 3 or 4 really nice passes off after getting the ball in the pocket. I mean, he looked really comfortable offensively. I think the work that will continue is on the defensive side, guarding pick and roll. It's the hardest thing to do as a young center in the league, and so he's going to make some improvement in that area.
Steve, how do if you have a lob threat in JK or Trace versus the floor spreading that you get from Quentin, how do you decide, is it a opponent versus per opponent, or how do you decide which way to go in the middle with the big guys?
You mean whether to have one guy out or on the floor or the other, or whether
Yes.
to have him roll or
Whether,
not?
yeah, how do you decide whether I want a lob threat or I want a floor spreader? Because they obviously don't have the same skill sets.
Right, right. Yeah, it depends on what the coverage is. You know, if a team is staying with their own, and you're running pick and roll, and they're not switching, the dive forces the defense to pull in on the weak side, so you kind of like the dive. If they're switching, and they're switching 1 through 5, that pop is just not open, and so that's where what we like to do is dive a guy down, throw it in the post, and make centers guard our split cut action. And so there's different thoughts, different strategies, and kind of depends on how the game is going.
Buddy had such a good start to the season, but he's really struggled in most games since then. Has there been any thought from you that you might actually start him, put him to the bench and have him come off the bench instead?
No, I like Buddy starting. We're trying to get some continuity here. We just started Quentin the last game or two, so we'll stay with it. And as I've said, Buddy is he's a threat. He's a shooting threat all the time, and I like that in the starting lineup. And even when he's not making shots, I think he's still impacting the game. And I really like Brandon and Dennis coming off the bench together. I think they're a good combination.